Andreas, please start by telling us who you are and what you do professionally.
Yes, I'm a general practitioner in Berlin and have been practicing PSE since 2008, and since then, I've been quite enthusiastic about it.
Sure, then please tell us, what excites you about PSE?
Exactly, what particularly excites me is the ability to make a patient's energy status visible. So, what does that mean exactly? Patients often approach me complaining, "I'm feeling so low on energy." That's precisely what is meant. We conduct a range of laboratory tests and thoroughly examine the patient, only to find that all lab values are normal. This is often the case and it frustrates the patient because they feel differently. And making visible how the patient feels, I find that the most beautiful, because then the patient simply finds themselves again.
And where would you say that PSE differs from other methods? What exactly are the opportunities for PSE with this?
Exactly, so PSE is particularly in the area where I can say that I haven't found any organic findings, yet someone still doesn't feel good. And using PSE as a supportive tool, I see the possibilities because it enables you to effectively engage with patients at their level of need. And patients are relieved to say, finally, someone notices or rather sees that I'm genuinely struggling, because they often feel disbelieved, or at least feel as though they aren't believed, when told everything is fine. This leads to self-doubt, wondering if they're just imagining their issues, regardless of whether this is explicitly stated or not. And by making visible the extent of the energy deficiency or the level of energy, it becomes incredibly useful. Of course, it can also be used supportively when the patient has a diagnosis. But the advantage is that it's often the reverse situation, where all values have been examined and are within the normal range, yet the patient still feels unwell and is quickly stigmatized as having nothing wrong.
And do you have any examples of how you've been able to concretely help patients in such cases?
What I do is try to balance the body, mind, and soul, rather than focusing exclusively on a disease. That is often misunderstood. What I find most beautiful is when I have someone who comes with a certain set of complaints and then experiences personal development and also feels much better about themselves again. And that reminds me of a patient I have been accompanying for several years now. It doesn't mean she was feeling bad for so long, but she kept coming back to delve deeper and work on her other issues that became clearer to her over the course of the treatment. So, she came with a complex set of symptoms. That wasn't really the main focus, from what I noticed. Rather, it was more about her energy that she became aware of. She is always completely drained and doesn't know how to manage her daily life. And then more and more, even though initially everything was fine with her family, her boyfriend, her children, and everything was in order. And this developed to the point where she herself came to the realization that her boyfriend was draining a lot of energy from her. That was her own realization. She separated from him and she blossomed more and more and became clearer and clearer. And it was so beautiful to see how she became clearer with each passing moment and found her own path more and more, also taking her own things. And they didn't part on bad terms. She could handle it really well, freeing up her energy for herself. And for me personally, it's always very nice to see people go through this development in self-awareness, whether they are children making a leap in school or adults.
leben, ob das jetzt Kinder sind, die dann so einen Schulsprung machen oder auch Erwachsene.
I mainly work with adults, and I find it so beautiful that, regardless of one's age, it's still possible.
Immer noch möglich ist.
Yes, that is the main advantage of the method for me.
Vorteil der Methode. Ja.
Can PSE also help with traumas in early childhood or later in life, such as due to deaths or separations?
Durch Todesfälle oder Trennungen zu unterstützen.
Yes, it can definitely be supportive.
Dazu beitragen.
So I think it's good for some things if the mind, if conversations are still held on this topic with specialized therapists who are there for that purpose.
Spezialisierten Therapeuten, die dafür da sind.
But the interesting thing is, when we treat clients with PSE, similar themes often emerge.
Themen häufig heraus.
And I always find it fascinating that they tell me, I'm currently dealing with this in therapy, whether it's trauma or not, and it's ultimately like a sign that the body can move in the right direction again.
Endlich wie eine Bahnung, dass der Körper wieder in die richtige Richtung gehen kann.
I like to compare it sometimes to train tracks.
Gleisen.
So tracks where I start on one track, and then there are always switches where I can say, now I'm going to the right, or now I'm going to the left.
Jetzt gehe ich nach rechts oder jetzt gehe ich nach links.
Or just like when I'm climbing a mountain, I choose a specific path, and I can initially see this predetermined direction. Then I see, here is a way I can go.
Hier ist eine Möglichkeit, wie ich einen Weg gehen kann. Aber
But that doesn't mean it's the only one.
der einzige ist.
I can always choose a different path as well, so I can continually discover new ways that lead me to a solution.
Wege sehen kann, die für mich dann zur Lösung führen.
So, in a way, it's about expanding one's perspective to consider multiple possibilities, so that one doesn't get stuck on a track that may not work well or be very cumbersome, but rather, one becomes more open to exploring different options and becoming more open-minded.
Exactly, that I can see it again. That is often our problem, that we are trapped in one perspective and think we see everything, but there is so much more potential or energy within ourselves.
Da ist noch ganz viel mehr an Potenzial oder auch an Energie von einem selber da.
And when I only have one perspective left, it drains my energy because that single view is what's currently causing me problems.
Ist ja der mir gerade Probleme bereitet.
I get stuck there and need more and more energy, and it's very helpful for filling up that potential again.
Das Potenzial auch wieder gefüllt wird. Dazu ist es einfach sehr hilfreich.
And that the life energy returns, which then becomes available to us.
Exactly, that energy is still there, but it dissipates for many things that are not conducive to our purpose in the end.
Dinge, die nicht zieldienlich sind letztendlich.
And this approach is supposed to lead towards purposefulness, or that I can refocus my attention on what is personally purpose-oriented for me.
Aufmerksamkeit wieder auf das fokussieren kann, was für mich persönlich zieldienlich eben ist.
And maybe to conclude, what opportunities do you see in PSE beyond your field of expertise, or to which therapists would you recommend working with PSE?
Fachgebiets oder an welche Therapeutinnen, Therapeuten, wem könntest du ans Herz legen, mit der PSE unterstützend zu arbeiten?
So, I'm a general practitioner, and I see patients from various fields, and I consistently observe that this energy is simply released, which is, in turn, essential for healing processes. For example, when I mention the sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, or even the tension nerve and relaxation nerve, our relaxation nerve is extremely important for regeneration and recovery. And if I promote that, which I do demonstrably with PSE, then I can apply it in any profession that aligns with this direction.
Das in jedem Berufszweig, der eben in diese Richtung geht, benutzen.
So, in this regard, I see no limitations, and I don't see it as a standalone solution. The great thing is that I can combine it with all other forms of therapy. That means I can continue with my conventional medical therapy, homeopathic therapy, herbal therapy, or manual therapy, whatever I use, while also seeing potential in PSE to uncover even more that's hidden.
Ja, weiterhin durchführen und sehe noch ein Potenzial in der PSE damit dazu, dass dann noch mehr freigeschaufelt werden kann, was da noch im Verborgenen liegt.